There are a lot of hunters that are quick to point the finger at predation as a cause of decreased deer sightings or deer observation numbers during the hunting season before they consider what's going on with doe harvest and how that could potentially be driving their decreased numbers of deer sightings or observations. And what I mean by that is certainly predation is a significant source of fawn mortality and sometimes even adult mortality in various places throughout the whitetails range. And it can have an appreciable impact. But from most of the research that's been published over the last several years, we see that predation alone isn't sufficient to result in declining deer populations. Oftentimes it has to be coupled also with doe harvest at the same time. And so the most immediate and effective way that we know to stabilize or increase deer populations when numbers are a concern is to decrease doe harvest. So when deer sightings become limited in the area you hunt, you should first look to, are we shooting too many does in that area, to make the determination and make that determination first before then going into expensive endeavors that may not have the best return on investment, like hiring professional trappers or going out there for several weeks of the time at a time on your own, trying to intensively trap a property to significantly decrease that predator population. Again, decreasing antlerless deer harvest, particularly doe harvest, is the most immediate and effective way to increase or stabilize deer populations. So antler restrictions, or shooting bucks based on antler size instead of age, is something that deer managers commonly get wrong. It's an intuitive way to make harvest decisions when it comes to bucks because antlers are either large or they're not, regardless of how old that deer is. Aging a deer based on its body characteristics is something that there's a little bit of science to, but it also is a significant art form. You ask any 5 deer managers how old a buck is that may be on the borderline between 3.5 and 4.5 years old, and you likely won't get a consensus from all 5 of those deer managers on the age of that deer. You know, at least 1 or 2 will say 3, or at least 1 or 2 will say 4. So that's much more of an art form. However, the risk that we run when we just make buck harvest decisions based on antler size is that we could potentially end up harvesting only the largest antlered younger males. And when we harvest only those larger antlered younger males, what ends up happening is we don't achieve the full potential of the antler size that that property is capable of producing, because those large antler males don't live into those older age classes when they produce their largest antlers. Another thing that a lot of managers are concerned about is by shooting those large antlered males at a young age that we could potentially cause the population to shift towards having smaller antlers genetically. So basically this would be a high grading or a reverse culling. You know, culling, which culling typically entails shooting the smallest antlered bucks to try to increase the overall antler size, and has been proven to be largely ineffective, but this is the opposite of that. So fortunately, what we found is that when the opposite is true, when we high grade a population by shooting the largest antlered young males, we don't really see that genetic shift either. So just as the typical culling is typically ineffective at increasing antler size over time, high grading is not effective at decreasing antler size over time genetically. What it just results in is you're not carrying those large antlered younger males into the older age classes where they express their maximum antler size.